gamers, gals, non-binary pals. This is back to our favorite discussion. That's right, questionable Yu-Gi-Oh card choices. And that is the mention shifter. Who likes shifter? Shifter, big fan personally. Shifter, goated card. Arguably my favorite hand trap ever. I'm not even joking when I say that. Number 1 is Ash Blossoms. Shout out to Rosalind. Number 2, Shifter's pretty up there. But I've made my opinions on Shifter very clear. I think that Shifter is a, although unhealthy card, I think that it is one of those cards that's kind of necessary for Yu-Gi-Oh! I think that with the massive influx of the graveyard as a resource and how decks are designed overall, being forced to play a deck without a certain resource, take for instance, being forced to play without a certain resource, being the graveyard in certain decks such as Ritual Beast, puts you at a massive disadvantage. So I think that playing certain cards that allow you to sort of get around your own inherent weaknesses and all that sort of jazz, I think is relatively decent game design. And although I do think it's like a very unhealthy card, just because most decks in Yu-Gi-Oh are unfortunately built around the graveyard, and like this card does kind of promote unhealthy, silly gameplay when decks do come around that can abuse Shifter, that don't rely on their graveyard that much. Think of like Tenpai or whatever, or Madolche. I think that Shifter is probably not one of those cards that really needs to be looked at too closely, at least in my opinion. Says Shifter unnecessary. It's necessary. Let's be fucking real. Imagine how fucking dog shit like half of these decks in the format would be if Shifter didn't exist. Imagine how like useless Tenpai would be. It's like 90% of fucking this world. Anyways, yugioh. The brainworms who support Shifter will never do well at Yu-Gi-Oh in your life. Sorry, not sorry. You're bad. First of all, very strong opinion. Coming out swinging. You may think this is engagement bait, but yugioh has very strong opinions about Yu-Gi-Oh, and not all of them are exactly healthy. Like thinking Baronne de Fleur was a healthy, fair card. Like I don't think I need to really explain why a theoretically non-once per turn negate that could be repeatedly summoned with SP Little Knight, as well as it was a pop for no godforsaken reason and was completely generic, was fair. That's why I play Flu. Flu is like the perfect example of like a deck that kind of uses Shifter a little unfairly, but I mean, it's Flu. Like this deck sucks. It's a normal summon deck. Fucking double summon is like a tech in this deck. Like just let Flu have it. Some decks need Shifter, okay? It's fine. But this is a very strong take because I love Shifter and I have one of these. I have a YCS bag that you only get when you win or get second place at YCS. Granted, it was for a fraudulent ass event. This shit was like the most fake thing of all time. But I'd like to think that I'm not terrible at Yu-Gi-Oh! Prime Stevie during the COVID era, when I was grinding events and extravaganzas and Yu-Gi-Oh! Days, I'd like to think I was pretty good. Fun fact, I was on a pro team for like a very short amount of time. But you know, shout out to C-Chan, his kid. He's a good dude. Anyways, let's see what these guys have to say. Hello, where are your achievements? Fucking go. This is like the ultimate vibe check. If there is one pro player who I love above all else, it is probably Herman Hansen. Herman is probably the guy where he will just show up to events playing like a silly ass deck list and he will just fucking go crazy. He won a nationals with Melodious. He's won regionals with like Madolche. He almost won a national / YCS thing with B Trooper, also known as DP Control at the time. Shouts to Verte. Like, I fucking love Herman. My fucking go. I salute. To say that someone is bad, you might need to be good in the first place till now. Got blocked. My god. I will say this is a very cheeky response, but let's not pretend like this post was not antagonistic. This post was a certified hater moment. I respect it. I respect him not taking tweets down. But yugioh, you have to know, you don't block people. You mute them, because if you block people, they can see that you blocked them. Great engagement for him. Bro out love here with denial format, tier format, and making guides to help others while he has no major accomplishments to back up his knowledge. Suck it up and do what a real competitor does. Deal with it. And block. The classic. I do agree with the idea that like someone who gives out Yu-Gi-Oh advice or like offers coaching or whatever should have some creds, like me and our format creds or whatever the fuck. But you know, like two things can be true at once, where like someone doesn't have a top, but someone can still offer objectively correct advice. But it is just very funny to see yugioh's constant posting about I fucking love Tiamat. I want to suck the fucking coochie of Kit Kolos. Like every every 5 minutes. And it's just like, tier format wasn't exactly a healthy or great format either. Like, I'll fucking yap about tier format again and say the same points that I had 50 other times. But the main thing that was super frustrating about Tearlament format, that Tearlament was a deck that was extremely unfun to play against when you were not playing Tearlament. The mirror was one of the most skill testing fun things you could ever do. But if you were not playing a mirror, and if you were on tier, or like if your opponent was on tier and you were on like Sprite or whatever, you just felt like you were gonna get rolled in 10 seconds. You felt like you were gonna get fucking shot in the chest, and there's just like literally nothing you could do as a player to overcome the deck gap. Because Tearlaments could play on turn 0. The hand traps that they played were just completely absurd and just better than any other traditional hand trap, as well as the fact that they could play like, you know, 6 Bystials or 7 Bystials if they really wanted to. Like, let's not forget that Orange Light discard Keldo to like stop your opponent's Sprite blue, and then you mill 5 and you hit a tier name. That shit was like fucking black tar heroin. Let's not fucking forget that, okay? I remember my friend Jesse was playing against John, and like that exact scenario happened, and John ended up going into like Dragostapelia, Rucolos, and Kaleido Heart to spin the Sprite blue, and Jesse was just like, what the fuck could I do? It's turn 0. Dweller and Bystials were also a pain in the mirror. Dweller was definitely one of those cards that made the mirror fucking go from like this hyper skill testing into just like, oh, okay, I guess we're just doing this now. As well as the fact that Bystials were like this weird thing where they're really good as hand traps, but they're also really good as extenders, because like, remember Beatrice was legal at the time. You could also make Wallow to be like a super DD Crow. It was like this very big headache of a format, you know what I mean? I understand the notion of engine versus engine being really engaging gameplay, but tier was so far ahead of everything that historically it wasn't a good format, and it'd be preferable to go back to a world where all gas, no break decks can find high tier success. The main thing that made tier so oppressive was that its engine was so high above everything else's, as well as the fact that its engine also was just natively hand traps. Like, Keldo was a hand trap. Let's not fucking forget that. Like, why does Keldo bounce? Additionally, Havness is also the greatest fucking hand trap of all time because it mills 3. There was no quote-unquote real way to deal with tier. They could set up Omni negates, they could set up monster negates, they could set up targeted negates, they could set up spins, they could set up monster effect negation, they could set up the Dark World shit if they really wanted to. It was just like this very all-encompassing thing that tier could just do the same thing literally any turn of the game, and you would just forever be outgrinded and outmatched. You had no access to your graveyard because of the shufflers. You had no access to your board because it was getting negated or spun. You had no access to anything because the guys were getting beaten to death by Rucolos and boosted Primeval Planets and Primeval Planet Tops and Kaleido Heart. It was just this very frustrating experience. Whoever made the tier archetype knew what the hell they were doing. As much faith as I want to put into Konami and say it was just like a very goofy accident, in an interview with Farfa like a couple years ago, they did mention how they do test products and archetypes and whatever about a year or 2 into the future.
So that generally varies on a lot of different factors. A large part of that is how many projects we're working on at any given time. We're doing about 32, 34 releases a year. I'm currently on a new project roughly every 2 weeks with everything else also ongoing. So it kind of depends on where everything lines up in the calendar, because there'll be like bank holidays or other company vacation days and stuff that comes into with this. Generally speaking, we're about a year ahead. Some products less time than that. And some things come up a little bit later. Sometimes you have like a really great idea that comes down, you're like, okay, can we fit that in here, or do we fit it in later, or what are we doing? It really depends on what other projects we've got in the pipeline to how long we actually have on development for these new sets.
So if like we're on September 2024 format, they're already making product to be released in like September of 2025 or that sort of deal. That's how far the pipeline goes. And the fact that these two formats were kind of right next to each other, like definitely Konami knew what they were doing. Let's sell these Paralitos, whatever it takes. $1 million Rhino Hearts, $1,000 Paralitos. So surprised that Ikelos never got a QCR. I pulled a Rucolos QCR. I felt like a god. That was the greatest feeling of all time. It's also the only prismatic secret that I've ever pulled. Starlight? I don't remember. Shout out to the Starlight Raiders for like the 2 seconds they were around. I'm so glad I didn't come back during tier format. It sounds so hit or miss from everyone. Tier format was really fun if you like tier format, and if you wanted to have a diverse metagame in any capacity, you wanted to kill yourself. I played Badolce during it, where I was like, yeah, like Glass Souffle, that's cool. Then I lost to everything else. That sucked. But yeah, like hitting Shifter to like 2 or 1 or whatever, it doesn't change anything because Shifter is still going to exist around. Because Shifter is still going to be seen play in deck lists, although it's going to be at 2 or 1 or whatever, and it's just going to feel like this very sacky card. And nobody likes to play against cards that are limited. Like, let's be real, it feels way worse to get Cult by the Grave than Crossout Designator, because one of these cards is a card that's arguably ban worthy and has seen play in literally every single format ever since it's come out, and the other one's Crossout Designator, you know, the most mid card of all time. Someone pointed it out, and I'm trying to be more positive. It's just frustrating when a game you adore and got you through tough times just doesn't feel the same anymore. I think if Shifter would have gone away, or if they would have done more hits to Snake, I'd be okay. Yeah, it's not cool to call people bad. Unless you're me, in which case you can call everyone who thinks Shifter is an unhealthy card bad. Shifter, greatest card. If you disagree, you're getting blocked and sent to the gulag. If I had to like make a tier list, post-banlist, Yubel, and then like Tenpai and Snake Eye like tied with each other, and then 4th place would be like Runic Stun and like Labertide. Like, you could play Snake Eye with like the Fire King stuff, but I mean, if you want to play fucking Brick Nation, that's your prerogative. I'm just waiting for Centurion support from Rhoda. Need that level 8 so bad. Centurion, rest in peace. The only thing that made that deck playable. It was so close to being playable. Now it's Blazar control. We're doing that in like 2014. I don't think Blazar's that good. I think Centurion's like fine. Like, the main thing I have an issue with Centurion is that it's an extremely telegraphed deck. They like tell you exactly everything that they're gonna do, and there's like, it is very easy to play against Centurion. There's no like branching paths where like Snake Eye is like if I ash this card, I might lose to Bonfire backup, or if I imperm this, then I might lose to the Bellstar or something like that. But Centurion is very much, they are going to do this play, into this play, into this play, and if this play gets interrupted, they will fucking cry, and their strat just kind of crumbles like a fucking nature valley. This is like a slight tangent. Shout out to Stevie video tangents, but Electromite could definitely come back. The main issue with Electromite is that it forces Pendulum card design in a very unhealthy direction, in the sense where your Pendulum archetype has to benefit in some capacity of destruction or something of the sort. Otherwise, like, your deck isn't gonna be able to abuse Electromite as well, and as a result, you're just gonna want to be like, well, I guess I'll go fuck myself. Like Plushfire or like Monkey Board, like the very easy examples, but also, you know, like Astrograph Loops, Metal Foes is a very obvious example as well. It's just like, this is the guy. Why does it draw you a card as well? What the fuck? Yep, Astrograph. Oh my god, Electromite, Astrograph, FTK combo. +4 in 1 card. You know what's a +20? Oh, this guy. This little fucking sperm cell. Little nematode. This is the real problem. I hate Samsara D-Lotus so much. Actual piece of shit. I mean, just bring it back to be an option at least. That's true. Remember when this video started off as like a Shifter argument? Yeah, me neither. Anyways, let me know what your guys' thoughts on Shifter, man, Electromite are, I guess. I think Shifter should stay. I think it's swag. Anyways, I'll see you guys in the next video. Goodbye forever.